I'm that girl who is also a mother. And you could say my Achilles heels are my children. And a lot of the work that I do is to empower myself for my children. And I'm already emotional about this because this is big conversation. And I'm so privileged and lucky to have incredible clients who just come in and be here for me. And it sounds really selfish and indulgent to know that I'm being supported at such a beautiful level by all my clients at different levels for different purposes and reasons. And this client is now a very close friend of mine. And we don't even really hang out very much. And she's never come around to my house and cleaned my washing or folded my washing. So obviously, there's problems in the relationship. But we're not even in the same country, but yet our hearts and minds are unified as one, as we're experiencing and being very aware of all the systems that are trying to destroy us at a soul level. And so this is a conversation that we don't quite know where we're even going to go, but welcome. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Oh, so you had a session with me. How did you unpack that?
It was really good. It was I was a little bit concerned about linking between what I was seeing in my head and what was coming out of my mouth. So I felt like, for example, I saw, wet cobblestone streets with a black lamp and moonlight, and I said, oh, I'm on a street. I think there's a puddle of water. So it was very I felt like I need to practice linking verbally, like the output of the images that I was getting or what I was seeing. I need a lot of practice on that.
Well, I mean, this is the perfect thing, right? Try to explain to me what you can see right now in your room. There's so much detail, and
Yes.
when people get visuals in the sessions, I mean, we could spend the entire whole session you
Oh,
describe.
true. You could turn it into a Stephen King novel. I know. Nobody
not
wants that.
not our collective, but yeah.
No, not that level of detail is what I mean. It's a boring
No,
level of detail.
and this is the hard thing, right? Expressing every sense uh,
Mm.
is impossible because what you experience through the sessions, while there is limited words and explanations, they're enough to trigger our memories. And so
Yes.
the first part of the session's full of super lots of senses, lots of details, lots of everything, lots of emotions, which is very strange because why are we crying over effectively family members we have no recollection of this lifetime about, but God, we love them and miss them so much. And it's very peculiar. So it is important, the words that come out of the sessions, but also to remember the full details. This is why I say you must listen to the sessions, as often as possible to jog the memory. And it's helpful for remembering the significance of the information. And also, it's undeniable proof that it's more than just a few random words that you're just popping up into your mind. It's a full, it's proof that what you're experiencing is real.
Yeah.
Because do you have a normally that imaginative mind?
Probably not. I wouldn't have thought so. I think when I hear it back, it is like reading a book or something where you are sort of revealing more each time you listen to it and you're actually noticing deeper things, or it's connecting in your meaning making. It actually starts making sense more. Um, you're making sense of yourself and your world
Absolutely.
through that very emotional visual content.
And then when Mr. Subconscious gets invited in with jazz hands and joy, it's a different sense again, isn't it? Because it's not as much visuals, unless
No.
it's recalled on, but it's more a pure channeling of a sense.
Yes, and I feel very rusty in that area. Not a lot of confidence in the things are coming out, and there's a little part of me that's saying, am I trying to please Joy, or am I just going for an easy way there? Or
Yeah.
but when I listen back, you know, I can hear that part of me that is that has been that guiding kill, you know, through your life.
Mhm.
And yes, it does feel a bit rusty though. You know, there's still a big part of me that just thinks, oh, it's ego.
Well, I mean, for our entire lives, we've been pushing away that sense, our subconscious. And so to actually allow it to speak for itself freely, we still can control it a bit and sort of, you know, keep it in a box a little bit more, because that
gated.
that thing, that extra sense, that higher dimensional being that's here been our main guide, that just wants to talk about how fucking brilliant we are. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to, you know, like, you know, we sort of, we're nervous. It's kind of like a smothering helicopter mother, you know, who just loves the fuck out of us. And, you know, oh, she didn't mean to be that asshole that one time. It was others that made her do it. You know, like, our subconscious is very kind. And sometimes it's embarrassing when, you know, it's always got our back.
Yeah. Yep. I can agree with that.
Yeah. So, and I just had a session yesterday where the woman was saying the same thing in terms of, you know, how can she trust the subconscious? You know, because she can feel that she's sort of holding back a bit, and she's, you know, really she's guarded to make sure that that subconscious doesn't, you know, say all the amazing things that she's worried the subconscious could start spouting out. That's embarrassing. And then, you know, the subconscious was just saying stuff she already knew. So that's weird, isn't it? Why would the truth be confirmed in a session like this? You know, like,
yeah.
And so what I sort of said to her, and what I've said to other people who feel the same way, is, yep, that's unfortunately, you know, confirmation of the journey of how we feel. Absolutely. So the more sessions you have, the more you can trust that this is not your responsibility of the information given. And then have sessions where it's blind questions, where you have no clue what is up for offer. And like, clients come to me and say, I need confirmation session. I want blind session questions. Is there anything that you have heard in other sessions that you want clarification on? I'm here for it. And I'm like, well, fancy, you should say that, you know, because there is, there's time limits on sessions, and I don't want to push my clients' bodies too much. And so, you know, the more I can explore concepts that I've heard once or twice through different people, it's fucking fantastic to get confirmation again through another vehicle who has no clue of what's been said in other sessions. I love getting proof myself. I love getting proof myself. And, you know, I'm very mindful when I hear some of the same information through clients, and I sort of think, hey, do they listen to that session? You know, because I'm still trying to put all the puzzle pieces together myself. And so when you hear different perspectives of the same information aspects, it's just nice and confirming, especially when you're talking about future events and you're trying to understand, you know, out of curiosity needs, you know, how to process this emotionally and what does it look like. And of course, they keep saying prepare for everything. And we are, obviously, because, you know, we trust that, you know, being prepared for everything is the best way to find inner peace and balance and just be prepped for everything emotionally.
Yeah.
So the reason why I got emotionally upset at the beginning is because you are aware of the education system very closely and how it is a very disempowering tool that almost empowers abuse and disempowerment, and it's almost hard to get out of that looping and that seductive disempowerment of children under paperwork and systems that truly aren't fast enough and working hard enough for children from our perspective of compassionate, unconditionally compassionate to all.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm very aware that I don't want to fuel narratives that would suggest that any individual in the education system isn't there for the right reasons for the empowerment of children, because they are. But I'm also aware that the system itself has its own ego, its own road train, like you know, going down a train line of its own steam, and the individuals in that train are doing their best to put the brakes on or to do whatever they need to do. And I'm really, really aware that there's a narrative with in the community around education is not looking after their children, when I'm really aware, deeply aware, that everybody that I know that is working in education is absolutely 100% looking after their children. So it's a really tricky conversation to have, because I see teachers burning out because they're working in a system that is full of ridiculousness, in paperwork and numbers and things that don't matter. There is pushback. There is, I do know from some higher ups, where they're looking at trying to increase the community connections, but we know that systems themselves, and when I'm talking about systems, I'm talking about the systems that support outside of education as well. They're talking about social work, child protection, the police force, health. All of those systems are struggling right now. So it's just another reflection of things cannot keep going the way that they're going, and something new has to come through.
Absolutely.
So the children that are finding it hard within the systems are the only reasons the systems will change. And the people that are working in the systems will make that change happen for the children that they look after. But the systems themselves are completely disempowered. So it's a real, I am very, very cautious about anything that would encourage parents to feel like that they're unheard, I guess. Like, I think that's really important, that they know that people are working very, very hard.
Absolutely. And, and we know that life contracts do play a big role in this. And what we could label as disempowerment is a part of the lesson to empower. You can only empower yourself through being disempowered, so you have to be given the pain to experience it, to know right from wrong. Some people don't get the lessons there. And much of it from my experience is life contract, and it could be karma, it could be lessons. It's always significant and purposeful. But I know that when parents don't feel like they are welcome into schools, or can sort of see how things are approached, or feel really, really distant to these systems, that they know that their children are being exposed to. I mean, you've got to have faith and trust that this is what the children need for them to empower themselves, and we can love them and empower them at home and all this sort of stuff. It's very challenging from all aspects. But we know from sessions that even the most pure, best intention from someone could be disempowering someone else. And so, you've got to have that balance, find that fucking inner peace somewhere. And just, and of course, if this is triggering us, the education system today, if this is triggering us, is this reminding us of our own journey when we were children at school? So, look at all our triggers, face all our fears, all this sort of stuff. But I thought, when I've been talking to you, and you've been able to just speak freely without worrying that people are going to misconstrue what you're saying, it does feel like there is beautiful light workers who are activated and awoke, who are working within the systems to empower each individual child at a rate that I don't think many parents are aware of.
There is, absolutely.
You don't understand, or like, I just want to confirm to you that means so much to me, as a mother, because when you can't see the energy because you're not really in the school very much, and you just have to blindly trust that all is well. When I actually heard you, an advanced soul who have been activated with a lot of other advanced souls who are working within the system, who are trying to make the change without aggravating the system to to completely disempower you. I mean, every system's like this. Every system's
Yeah,
like this. It's not just
true.
unique, which is frustrating, right?
Yeah, and that's the nature of a system where it becomes instead of it becoming an organized body of ideas, the body becomes in charge, basically.
Yeah.
But we work in a way where the children are empowered. Everything is about empowering children, and it could be as simple as I need to sit silently next to this child and let their energy just align with mine, and we're okay.
And
There's a lot of setting up of spaces with
yeah.
intention. There's a lot that we do. Absolutely.
Well, I would see that, you sort of fantasize when you started going into teachers training that you're just going to be this wonderful gift to the children. Did you even factor in you'd be this wonderful gift to the parents as well? Like, you probably didn't even consider that was part of the parcel of your job.
No, I hadn't really thought about the parents so much in the sense of, I mean, I was a parent myself, and my child had already been in school when I went and did my teacher training.
Nice.
But I definitely walked in thinking these are all aspects of myself, and we're all connected. And so when I was in a classroom, every child was a connection of me. And, I was already, everything I did in my life was already through those eyes. So, for example, I did some exams, like where I used to look after the exams for the uni of invigilating, whatever it's called. I used to go in there and fill the whole room with yellow energy for, everybody's connection. So it was the same sort of thing of going to a school and start teaching there. It was about how can I empower these kids? And I have ended up at a place where I'm surrounded by people. I can see them. They're all light workers. And I see the people that work one-on-one with the kids, and, their energies and their connection to themselves. I work with a lot of empowered people that are using a lot of high energies. Like I don't feel out of place at where I work at all. It's beautiful.
Mm. And maybe, we only, as parents, we only maybe be aware of like one or two players at the school, because you don't really get to meet the other teachers. And, and also
No.
when I was feeling into it with my kids' schools, was feeling into the whole energy of all the children as a collective anyway. That was really
Yes.
surprising as well. And the dynamics of what they were teaching each other and experiencing and empowering each other with, it gets convoluted. And I mean, we can be afraid of all systems and all industries, if we let our emotions run away with ourselves, or we can just feel into and have faith and trust that, even the most, what we'd want to lazily say, the most corrupt systems. Let's talk about banking, right? Obviously, they're all corrupt, but that's a stupid assumption, really, because there has to be light workers within there that are trying to push their own co-workers and bosses and systems to something that truly is more helpful. And that must feel very stressful for those bankers that have moral compasses and are there of awakening and enlightenment to keep going. But we want to make everything all villains and bad and overgeneralize. And I mean, it's easy doing that, right? It's easy doing that than actually considering all the hard workers that are actually within these corrupt systems, shall we say lazily, that are still trying to empower the system within itself.
Yeah, well, I think, if you're walking into a space where hundreds of people are coming together every single day, there's a lot of vulnerability there. There's a lot of things that go on. Like not everything's going to go right, obviously, because there's a lot of learning to be had on all levels.
Mm.
So the disempowering part of the system is when that learning is happening, it doesn't recognize any of that learning. And when I'm talking about learning, obviously I'm talking about evolving and deepening empowerment in self. And the system by nature doesn't have any of those qualities, so it doesn't recognize any of those things as important.
The labor pain of the journey of growth. And when you don't see the lesson and the significance of that painful experience,
Yeah.
you can't appreciate it until it's been completely resolved and healed, and the perspectives have been seeked and sought after and grown from.
Yeah.
I was
So,
feeling it.
go
Feeling
on.
I was feeling into Maria Montessori earlier today, and she was sort of chatting away and sort of saying, she still feels that her system was the best, and she's still pissed off in some regards, because she's like, it was just arrogance that her work wasn't respected as it should have been back then, because she was a female.
Mm,
Because she was just
yes.
a female, she had brilliant ideas, but because she was just a stupid female, it wasn't taken as a serious study, even though she had seriously studied the human behavioral aspects of a child and how they truly develop and empower themselves from within.
Yeah, there's a lot of personally, I think there's a huge issue with this weird separate, like it's not weird, but the separation of religion and state, which they pretend is there, and of course it's not. But then when it comes to talking about self-empowerment, and the next thing we obviously do lots of mindfulness and so forth. It all has to come back in through a different channel, through a channel that is accepted. And so then it becomes watered down, and then the next thing you know, it becomes a process and a procedure. And by the time it, gets through, it's lost all meaning. And I don't need to work in a school that's religious at all. I don't actually want to. But the things that they do well is things around community and open conversations around intention and prayer. So when you have a situation where you're having a restorative conversation and the kids get it, they get it. It's fine. They 100% can learn and grow and be amazing. They know that this has taught them something that they're actually, there's no shame. It's amazing. So there's amazing things that happen every day, but the system can't even really put that into quantify it. So it doesn't actually become integrated into the system, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. And like, is these children inspiring, encouraging us to be better within our own selves as adults,
Yes.
and what we seek and need to make the change? Because we all sort of have this assumption that we're just one small clog of the wheel. And if we actually remembered how powerful we are and how deserving we are of being respected, and our opinions and experiences and intuition being accepted, we can be big wheels within ourselves and make massive changes if we believed in ourselves and focused on what is driving us with passion to inspire ourselves to share for others and all. It's, I love it when we feel empowered versus disempowered by the systems and just have to keep status quo.
Yep. And somehow the people that I work with, seem to have found a way to empower ourselves. And I do think it's like being able to step in and out of systems energetically. And the impact that we have is huge in that we're actually empowered. We're walking around, we're empowered, and the kids can feel it. And we're not looking beaten down by a system, there was a crossroads there at one point. It could have gone either way. Absolutely. In fact, probably did go the other way for a bit until I just felt die or survive. Like I really need to do something different here. And the only thing that I could do was become more aware and more grounded and actually a lot more responsible for my own energy. And in that, the connection, obviously to the kids and the vulnerability is huge now. Whereas before, when people are overrun by systems, it starts to shut you down from the risk of things going wrong, the risk of being emotionally responsible for somebody else, and all of those sort of things.
The empath in you would have wanted to heal and save all children that had hardships. Now you can energetically know if that's a lesson or the significance or the purpose, or whether they're coping, but you just, you're there with them and not helicoptering them or saving them from these lessons they need right now. And so, you're leading, you're guiding yourself through your intuition to know who needs extra.
Yes.
Like,
so now now it is a case of I'm aware that things happen all the time, but they don't necessarily bump up against me. If they do bump up against me, then it is a case of my intuition tells me whether I need to act and advocate. And I'm very lucky that the people that are above me in my work will act and advocate whatever needs to be done. So there's no one above me saying, no, you need to be small. The person above me is saying, what do we need to do? All right, let's do it. But I do not get that intuition about everything all the time. So there are some things that look like injustices, and the intuition says, okay, this is whatever reason, this one's not yours. And to the point where the people that I work with in leading, we actually know sometimes another person will say, this one's mine. Or we sit there and shake our heads and go, there's a trigger here, but I'm not getting pushed to do anything right now. And so there's a lot of trust and a lot of circling back and grounding again, because the only way we can be guided is from within. We can't be guided from procedures and policies above us.
And emotional reactions where the empath wants to pursue, all dangers and all problems and overreact.
Well, there's the burnout.
Yeah.
Basically.
Doesn't matter what industry you're in. What does it mean?
No.
Even if you were, a recluse, that burnout of worrying about everything, whereas it needs to be perspectives and balance. And, when we haven't healed ourselves, we're highly paranoid, afraid of everything. Because we're on such high alert. But the more
everything is triggering and everything is a risk.
Absolutely. And that burnout is very real. And so you either get to that point where you feel everything and but someone else's problems can trigger us to grow for ourselves when we don't want to identify our own problems or our own events. It reminds me of this conversation that we had about you noticing other fragments of soul energy, essences. You meet a complete stranger or you're watching someone on TV and they remind you that aspect. There's like this little soul within them that's like, hi, remember me? I'm this friend. And it's so fascinating when you're explaining it to me about how you can recognize soul fragments in other people, reminding you of others. And so it helps you have that deeper connection with that soul essence who's in another body, all fragments of self.
Yeah, it's almost like the way I look at it is almost like the Jungian archetypes, except it's not. It's not the mother, it's not the whatever. It's actually, there's that person. And oh my gosh, I see somebody else and I'm like, there you are again. And
well, I've had
it's like a small family all of a sudden. Instead of hundreds of people, there's 10.
If you will, a higher self. I had this recently in a session where they knew that they were coming to Earth, and so they fragmented out. They exploded out into, and then they were placed into many different bodies, which was fantastic. And so, we can recognize and identify these soul fragments in other vehicles, in other bodies. And they're everywhere on TV, in your news. It is amazing how
it is amazing, and across everybody, all genders, races, everything, you can still see it.
It's so you can see the soul signature frequency come out, almost like a little winkle in their eye where you're like, wait a minute.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter what the vehicle is. You can feel their soul essence energy within going, hello. And look at me in this lifetime. Aren't I hilarious?
Yes. And and that's part of that expression of learning, that one is learning, might be learning some hardships over here, another one's, and sometimes the way that it's digested, or the way that their humor there's a similarity there, but the experiences are so different. And for me, it reminds me about how those experiences have to be different. If all of those fragments came down and led these perfect little lives, there'd be no point
Well,
being, you know.
absolutely. If you're wanting to, because some people are like, well, Joe, I've never been raped this lifetime. Does that mean it's coming? Yeah, I'm a volunteer. I know I'm supposed to I'm supposed to experience everything in one lifetime. And they sort of panic with this. And I'm like, well, how do you know that the other soul essences of you, the other fragments of your higher self haven't already experienced that? Like it's not as we assume. And we love assumptions. Like I live off assumptions, like
Oh,
that's my bread and
yes.
butter. you know but it's about when we stop and think about things at a serious level and tap into our teams for the perspectives that we're seeking. Then we can be rest assured.
I can tell you that we've got some beautiful, beautiful children where I work, and some of them keep us super busy on our toes, super busy. And not all of them, but every now and then we'll have one come in and we'll go, I will see, I'll know, but a bit of that. I know that song. And it's almost like that soul gets to, whether it's here, whether it's on TV, whether it's in the news, they're getting to have a bite of different things of what they need all at once instead of just through one vehicle.
Mm. Could it be said, I wonder if the majority of the teachers that are here to help these, little children, given the fact that these little children are super advanced souls here to help humanity grow and evolve,
Yes, they're all volunteers.
Yeah. yeah.
They are.
That by caring and nurturing other children and giving them the respect and learning to trust, like I can see huge significances for the teachers on their learning journey. While they think that they're there to teach others, they're actually there to be, front line to be taught by the children. And I'm wondering
100% the kids are evolving us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But my friend, you're advanced and I love your optimism of everyone's intentions and integrity, but I have some feelings that I've come across some teachers in my time where they are the God for the children and the children will worship them.
It's a very it's absolutely old mentality. It's the equivalent of a doctor saying, I've got a white coat on, so you listen to what I say. Like that doesn't work anymore either.
Yeah.
And it can only spread. All I can say is that people I work with are quite influential outside of the space that we work in. But in the space that we work in, you actually can see the mentality light up people. So it's called out.
Yeah.
If that old thinking is there, it's called out. Or strangely enough, people move away.
Yeah.
So
and again, that's all, healing and experiences and whatnot.
Yeah.
I remember going to a historic village place in my town when I was little, and it was always fun to see old school stuff, old timey stuff. And there was this school where you would see the cane that the teacher used to give the children, and it was awful benches, and it was like really intensive times. And I just I think that sort of stuck with me for a bit, but it has evolved. And I guess children were raised to be seen and not heard, and that's just the way that humanity has evolved within itself, with its behaviors and treatment of each other.
There's things that keep evolving and challenges that keep coming, and as long as they're met creatively, then sometimes we bring in a response to a need. And there are people that go, what are we doing here? I thought we were at school. But then it works. And they go, oh, okay. And a little bit more trust is built. So there's that as well, where it's just sort of everyone's on a bit of a journey. But at the moment, with new little ones coming in, there's an impact of the COVID in the sense of there's kids that were home for a long time, in their developmental stages, might have gone out to the shops and only seen people with masks on. Like there's a lot of impact that I think are going to bring different challenges. But once again, it's always the balance. It's always a balance of, so instead of thinking about how to, teach a child, um, the people higher, way above our school, way above, are actually saying, how the child feels that they belong is more important than what they're learning. So there's a lot of good, that balance is also there where people of influence and power, I suppose you say, on how we look at schooling are changing it because they're recognizing the needs are so much different. They're not, it's not 50s anymore, so we can't just do cookie cutter approaches, which
Yeah.
they knew anyway. But it's almost like COVID has propelled everybody into actually opening up to a new way of thinking because they're accepting that the world has changed somewhat and the kids have changed in response to, they can't say they had the same childhood that I had, which would have been, I suppose, once upon a time someone said, well, I went through depression and the next kids didn't, you know what I mean? Like, there's always change.
Mm.
But the balance is it is opening up. Things need to be done differently. And if the children are coming through needing us to do it differently, they will let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Clearly, very clearly.
And
You know what I mean? Like there's some movers and shakers that will not let us pretend that we can just keep doing what we're doing every day, not changing.
yeah, absolutely. And while I've never worn a mask myself, I was very pleased to hear the growth and significance of humanity mostly wearing masks, which was to start attuning their senses to telepathy versus lip reading and just blind, just having a lazy way to communicate through listening.
Yeah.
Because when you're muffled and you can't hear them, you have to tune into their integrity and what they're trying to say, which is a gift that we all had, but now we're trying to get activated back to it. So yeah, I'm not a hater of the mask anymore. Look at me grow.
No. Yeah, and that's I suppose this is that over optimistic side of myself that you hear all the time, but that's how I see it. And yeah, and that's why I say it's always on balance because all these bad things come along, but on the flip side, it's just this amazing things are born out of it. And so, I can tell you that when I interact with a child, I make sure that my energy matches what I'm saying. Because if it doesn't, I actually have to tap out with another one of my colleagues and say, I can't do this right now.
Because you're honoring yourself and you're honoring that child. And that is like, you don't realize that that's a rarity. And just even human communication where you are responsible, you actively are very aware and responsible for your own energy, and that is rare, and that shouldn't be, but you know it.
Well, I'm super privileged because I'm surrounded by people that understand me exactly what I'm saying because they too will say, I can't align myself right now, if needed.
But
or I've got this.
You're discrediting yourself. I don't give a fuck who's around you. It is you at your core level, your core choices, your decisions to be aware of whether you're faking it right now or whether you just, you can't, you just need to take your time. Like you were saying to me the other day, you take the time to go out and to ground yourself in the atrium. You take responsibility of your energy field. You are you're living the pinnacle of how we're supposed to master human. You really are. And don't ever fucking dismiss what you do because of other people around you.
No, I'm not dismissing it. I'm just saying that I'm not alone in that approach, which I value very much. So I saw people a couple of weekends ago and I came back and I had a very strong realization that with a lot of people, the only way that I find that I can communicate is if I'm reaffirming their viewpoints of the world. Because as soon as I ask those questions that are actually self-empowering, they can't hear me. And so the reason that I do bang on about who I work with is because I can actually I'm not reaffirming people. I can challenge. We take responsibility for ourselves. And I think I work with those people because that's what we're helping the kids with. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like you can't hide in the school. if you can't get that right. And everyone's on their own journey and everyone's at different levels, of course. But that's that's why I'm very pleased with who I am with, because they are, you know, I know what I've got, and I do, and I forget, because I'm surrounded by it just enough. I forget that when I go out, like how much other people don't necessarily are not awake, basically.
I mean, it's always good to be able to support people in their own opinions and belief systems if this is giving them joy.
Yeah.
But also,
there's nothing wrong with it. They're not terrible people. There's nothing wrong with their beautiful thoughts and ideas.
No, but I mean, I understand. But when you're trying to help give them a perspective that may be more helpful for them and beneficial for them, because you're noticing that their limited perspectives are holding them back, I mean, you must feel that push to kind of just, talk a little bit more about your own opinions and expressions and experiences.
Yeah, but I don't know, maybe I save that. I really switch into that when I'm at work, and when I'm at play, I'm like,
oh yeah.
Like it's that burnout thing. I can't, unless they're in crisis, of course, then it's a different conversation. And it's that conversation around that we had when I was channeling around. I need to probably bring up things a little bit sooner than I think unpack things when they become big for people, pointing out. But that's a lot of,
Yeah. And I mean, we're here to be of service always. And that challenging thing of feeling like, well, can't I just be not a light worker right now? Can't I be a reactive? Can I just be frustrated with humanity? It's just in my private time. And our energy fields are always on, and everyone can feel our energy fields. And I had this amazing session the other day. I mean, they've always, recently, and I always feel like they always are, but it's just this, the information from sessions is just always evolving, and it's just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think, what is going to fucking top that session? That session was amazing, and then next session, it's just huge bounds and leaps, which I'm loving.
Yeah.
And one of the comments that my client was saying is, why always this murderer to all the plants? I want to have all these household plants in my house, and I just, I would like to be able to have them, but I just can't keep them. And I just asked casually the subconscious, like, what's up with her and the house plants? And they said she works all the time with other people in her daily work. We don't want her to have any more responsibilities when she gets home. We want her to be there for her, and to actually have more plants around her house as her being of service still. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so perfect. But you can sort of feel her sort of, what's wrong with me? Why can't I have these nice things? And it made so much sense, but I'd never ever considered that, the high maintenance of a house plant would be.
That's great.
It's amazing what we hear in sessions.
Yeah.
And so, is there anything else that you experienced in your session that you still wanting to process, or you're proud of, or is there anything that you wanted to share? I mean, this is publicly being listened to by people who understand this work and get it. Is there anything you wanted to? Otherwise, you could ask me anything else before we go.
All right. So nothing's coming to mind from the session.
Cool.
Yeah. I think I'm just gonna have to keep going on the journey and see what comes up next time.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, there's always so much to unpack and unfold, and usually it's just about healing from the times we were not kind to ourselves, when we took it a little bit harder than we should have and could have. And those lessons are more valued, I think, because we really earned them. So yeah, keeping positive. Is there anything that you are just curious or nosy about that we could explore? That doesn't have to be anything personal, obviously. Any concepts?
Oh, Now you put me on the spot. There's probably too many to start with. I don't know. No, I can't think of anything right now. I'd have to ponder. I think there's there's too many things coming to mind at once. I'd have to sit down and write them all down or something.
Well, you can always do that, and I'm always happy to channel for you with you if you want, because usually what we personally are still pondering and trying to understand the significance and purpose of, usually if it's us thinking and questioning this, usually there's
Yes.
dozens
Yeah,
of
yeah. And then you feel like the ego is going to come through and answer it for you. Well, you could channel with all the systems that I work with outside of the site that I'm in, is is it just that those systems are going to break down, or is it that they are going to change positively before they probably break down anyway? Do you know what I'm asking them?
all systems have to break down, and they
That's
break down.
right. Undo. They have to. They have to. I know.
They break down from internal, because the conflict of them, it's the individual workers that come together in unity that hold the system accountable and prove that it is corrupt. And that takes courage, that takes conviction, and that takes bravery from those people who wanted the system to work because they trusted the system, but the system keeps failing them, and they have provable evidence that the system is failing humanity at its, at its role that it's supposed to protect and grow and empower humanity. So all systems are waiting to be pushed open. The systems are purposely terrible and bad, and all the labels you want to call them. So that gives unity and encouragement, inspiration for those people who morally and professionally, ethically know this is not the way humanity should be looking after itself.
So essentially, for them to break down, there's not really anything else that's going to come up in the meantime, is there? Because otherwise, that will take the pressure off the system.
Well, the thing is that you're going to be able to find the systems that can work and how it would actually empower. And so
that's it. Is that a shift, or like I'm happy for the systems to break down that I'm thinking of, the particular ones that I'm thinking of, which are pretty major.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, are they burning to the ground? And then something has to come from that, like the phoenix, or do we have something happening in tandem that actually becomes stronger than the system that eventually crumbles, and then there's something else that's sitting there?
Yes, so that's what that's what our collectives want us to do right now. They're sort of showing me like schools on fire, and people are still just working around them, or don't go to that hotspot, just just focus on this area, focus on that area while the fire is still raging. Now, are you supposed to spend all your time putting out that fire, or are you to step away from that fire and build another school next to it to show in the ashes of the burnt down, broken down systems, this is how we truly empower and identify each individual human soul here? It's challenging though, because we're in this evolutionary change where the terrible systems have to still exist for those karmic experiences to be given, and so it's kind of like, otherwise they wouldn't cease. So there's significant purposes that these corrupt systems are still there, but they're never going to change. The systems are never going to change themselves. The people have to change the systems. But when you're not directly confronting the system as such, but you're just ignoring that system, but still working within the confinements of a workable system, but not making it official, then you're creating your own unofficial system. And then that is the renewal, the revival of humanity starting to be aware of itself and empower itself at that level. But this is when the system does come and impact that growth of empowerment again and again and again. You can burn out that way. and all the way showers can just sort of give up and then go, fuck it, I'm gonna become a milkman.
Yeah, that's right. That's I'm not making a free measure.
And so this is why police force have really short careers. This is why doctors and nurses, they're leaving their industries. This is why lots of people are walking away from professions that they truly and wanted to deeply believe in. And so things are changing. And of course, when we go to the new earth, for those who go to the new earth, we're learning still, but at different aspects, different levels of energy and how to create energy and to do a whole lot of other stuff. The skills that we're learning on the new earth is about the fifth dimensional way of living, while we're telepathic and can feel energy and create energy. It's a huge difference between, I think I'm here, I think I'm in the new earth, versus being physically here in the 3D, which is still very challenging. I mean, can you imagine what it would look like to live in a physical 3D planet that is empowering and celebrating our souls and our journey? What would it be like if we remembered who we are to some degree, in terms of we confidently knew we were here, we didn't remember everything about ourselves, we knew that when we die we're going to go back and be this high. Would we endure these experiences in the physical? What do you mean I gotta fold my fucking clothes? We don't have clothes.
It might be a beautiful novelty to have.
Probably really short lives.
Maybe, but I also think we come back because we can hold each other and we can hug each other and have those sunsets, and sunrises and all of those things. I did great meditation a long time ago, probably 10 years ago now. And I saw myself as this old lady, and she was walking through this garbage dump tip, like I think it's probably, the old earth level of rubbish. And I was just muttering around. And so he said to me, "What are you doing?" I was looking for my eyeball. And I found it, muttering away, because I was watching myself, obviously. Picked up this eyeball, stuck it in my left eye, and watched the sunset. I was happy.
Are you sure you weren't that woman from the labyrinth?
I haven't even seen it.
You haven't watched the labyrinth? Where were you in the
No.
90s? Where were you in the 90s?
Yeah, no, I haven't. But there's heaps of things I haven't. There's anything that gets really, really, really large groups of people want to do, I immediately don't do it. However, I watch things and read things and have read widely. So it's just one of those weird things. If it's like there must be something in my agreement, my contract. If a huge group of people want to do it, I don't.
So you're sort of avoiding the popular stuff.
I think it's just group mindset stuff. It's probably learning how not to identify. When I get excited about things, I don't need anyone to come on that ride with me necessarily, but I also get very careful about things that everybody's into.
So yeah, it's like you've been reminded about peer pressure can take away your own individual thoughts and feelings and drive.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the Titanic like 15 years after it came out, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched what was that with the blue people, Avatar, for the first time maybe a month ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just I just enjoy it for myself, I guess. Anyway, that's all. And I really took from that a lot of beautiful stuff. I wasn't too worried about any Hollywood influences. I actually maybe that's it. I just perceive it through my own little lens.
In your own personal divine timing, where it's important and significant, and it's nice to sort of live life like that, where you're in control and in charge of it, and you just honor where you're called to. And I think that's important. You're not one of the sheep. You're your own independent, going by your own drum kind of lady. And I love that.
Yes, which is very tricky in a system, but it's okay. Because you actually can feel it very clearly. And maybe maybe that was just part of the process, feeling when everybody else is in a space, a thought form, join, leave kind of thing.
Yeah, and you're thriving in it because you haven't lost yourself in it completely. You tried that for a little bit and then kind of empowered yourself through it better than before, which I think then activated other people around you as well. Perfect.
So if I win the lottery, then we'll just build our own school. Is that what you're saying? Is that the way to go?
Yeah.
And then we'll channel a few of the greats and make it work.
Yeah, today, your teacher will be I remember channeling Rudolf Steiner, and he was delightful. And I can't remember what he said, but I do remember channeling him. And I saw him writing his bike.
Channeling everybody, channeling the new teacher for the day.
Yeah, today it's going to be Freddie Mercury and
yes.
Oh,
how could that be?
This channeling that I did today, they were saying how other souls are going to be able to pick and choose to watch an entire life, or a small part of it, or the entire, whatever, of a life on Earth. And it's like they go to like the library and pick a path of someone's life, and then they get to like have the simulation of being like a first person player to someone.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I just thought,
I feel that.
If I went to the library, what life would I want to explore and like sort of live vicariously through, as feeling all of the experiences, and it's like, oh.
Well, you could try them all, and funnily enough, you would come back and be like, "Oh, mine." Right? As in your own.
Yeah, it's like, can't believe I was wearing that. How embarrassing. No. It's so interesting and intriguing to think that our lives have been recorded, so then other people or other beings, whenever they wanted to, could explore this. And I think this is, that's when all of our life records are going to be in like Akashic records, which are open to all. But there's just like, there'll be just so many aspects of it. And then like, I think it's really convoluted, because I think, oh, what about all the different timeline branches? How does that all get played? Pick a path of a movie. I mean, it's just so fascinating.
Choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. Will you be this person who takes that choice and that career, or this boyfriend and have those children? Like, it's just going to be, I think it's just marvelous. For curiosity factor, and I think it'd be really helpful for the villains, like when people want to understand what the fuck created that monster, but they won't be thinking that this is us thinking it in the third dimension. But I think in advanced souls, like, oh, that's right. I want to see the agitators who were keeping those systems broken and disempowered to wait for the uprising of humanity to suddenly give a fuck about itself and be responsible for itself, to be in unity together, to be able to push at the systems, to be able to start being accountable for humanity, what it's designed to be. I mean, it's fascinating. I can't wait to explore
it. It's good. It's good. I'm just trying to do that now. Send myself out on little journeys every now and then.
Nice.
With the people I love.
Yeah, well, I find that when I have some sort of downtime, there'll be someone that I just sort of suddenly ponder and think, how was it for them? What was their awareness of the afterlife, and what was their true struggles, and what did they have to overcome, and what was the impacts from other potential lifetimes that kind of formed them into the lives that we know them of now. And it's so fascinating, because I feel like they come in and they're just like, oh, hey, you curious about me? Well, let me show you. And so then they kind of, it's funny because they're very human. And even though I know when I can feel that they're advanced souls chatting to me, they kind of not devolve, but they kind of come back into their, like, if they find it sort of funny, it's like, oh yeah, let me be human with you and show you around my hot mess of a lifetime that I thought was hilariously funny, and now it's adorable. Like, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
But I sort of, I don't do it all the time because I think it'd be way too distracting. But when I do think about this, and then I realize, oh, they actually have something quite serious that they want to share publicly, because their perspective of their own individual life is a classic example of something we haven't considered before, which is beautifully set in stone for us to know in our history books. And that's the frustrating thing, right? We're not aware of every individual soul from our perspective, because it's only those people that are kind of, in quotation marks, famous or influential, that we have history about. And it's still fascinating. And I really, without being emotional and feeling into the troubles and the problems of being human, putting that aside and just seeing the beauty of these opportunities to live feels like such a beautiful gift and a blessing. And that's what keeps me focused a lot of the time, is trying to remind myself of that higher perspective.
Yes.
But we definitely need it, because as we know, more and more places around the world are having their, what we would call, official old earth time experiences.
Yes.
I mean, we know that we've always been on the old earth, obviously, but after the chaos, after the individual chaos of those areas. But then there's also people and family that are having massive chaos right now, and they haven't had any disasters as such, but important people in their lives have died. And so that's their own internal chaos that they're experiencing. And so they're sort of showing me pockets of areas of the world that are bigger areas are having the chaos experience. And then family and friend, certain social circles, they're having their impacts because someone has tragically died way before the time, with what you could call a sudden exit point that seems to be very significant right now to get people's attentions, to trigger them emotionally and think about life after death and all that stuff. So it's marvelous times when we don't feel into it emotionally.
Yeah. When we don't actually have to be right front and center, and
when we don't when we don't have to react, we're heroes living on earth. And as soon as we choose to feel those emotions, I just go down to the gutter, and I just snot Butterball City.
Yeah, that's right. We're all the same there. We're all the same.
It's all choices. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing with me and everyone, and giving us the understanding that within every system there is, beautiful powerhouse soul family members being of service, and in the best of their human capacity, shining the way and guiding others to be able to see and perceive new systems that actually empower, without reactively disempowering humanity. So thank you for all your service.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.